shaking, y'all. It is the Golden Mike, episode 46. Andrew just saw what an introvert I am. I'm like, what is up? Andrew Hand is with us today. Listen to this, y'all. I'm just going to go down some of the things that Andrew and I have talked about. We met 6 weeks ago, so Andrew, you're hearing my voice for the first time. And how does it sound? Is it as sexy as I told you it'd be?
It's beautiful, because before it was like this.
Please, come on show.
Yeah.
Come on show. I was like a total caveman. It is good to have you here. We've got a lot of things to talk about today. Andrew Hand, singer, songwriter. Andrew Hand, motivational speaker. Andrew Hand, you look like Tom Petty. Don't bring it up anymore. We're going to talk about music, but even more than music, the idea of self-acceptance, the idea of love, the idea of hope that Andrew brings in his music, that he brings in his talks, and then a couple things like, if y'all have been thinking that you're a genius and you're not answering the call, well, guess what? We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about sometimes being selfish isn't actually being selfish at all. You know, we're going to talk about sort of the paradox between having confidence and competence. A lot of people mix up ego and say all these things. We're going to separate those things and then embracing some of the things that are unknown, a scary future sometimes. Or as I like to say, the future freaks me out in a bad way or a good way. Andrew, it is awesome to have you on today, brother. For those of you who are huge Andrew Hand fans, my name is Mark Cordone. It is good to meet you. I am the founder of the Make Money Coaching Program, but even more than that, I'm a positive psychology coach. This simply means two things, y'all. Are you feeling good, and are you functioning at your full purpose? Like our boy Jorge in Puerto Rico. Jorge, always here. What does this mean, by the way, Andrew?
Dude, I don't know. I see people do that, and Chris Winfield, if you're watching, Chris and Jen do that a lot, and I'm like, what does that mean, Jen Eden? I don't get what that means.
Jen Eden, Chris Winfield, what does this mean? Does this mean a field goal? So for those of you who are out there that are feeling good and functioning to your full purpose, let's take a field goal and put it up, Andrew Hand, and let's make a heart.
It's good.
Give us some hearts. Show us some hearts. If you're feeling good and functioning to your full perfection, Jorge says it means perfect. Perfect. That's what it means. Andrew, are you feeling good and living to your full purpose today?
Dude, I am, brother. I'm feeling really good.
It is good to have like a human conversation with you and be able to keep up with you. Please get on show. For those of you who are also tuning in and are like, yo, positive psychology, it's all like Taco Tuesday every single day with this guy. It's like triple rainbows all the time. Guess what? That's not what positive psychology is about. It's about the ups, downs, and all arounds of life. If you listen to music and you feel the crescendo in music, if you're feeling flow in music, and sometimes you're moved to tears, happy, sad tears, that's what feeling life at full capacity is about. Now, you might have had a crappy weekend. It's Wednesday. You might be in the middle of a hump day, or you might be transitioning full on with your purpose right now, and you don't know what it is. You know what? Your heart is beating like the rest of us. You've got a story to tell, and we can't wait for you to tell it. Just give us a thumbs up if you're out there so we know that your heart is beating. Give us a thumbs up. That's where the best music is written sometimes, bro, is when you're in the up, down, and all arounds, right?
I mean, the songs that you've heard, I've written in my darkest moments, man. They've come from deep pain.
Oh my gosh. And if we can play some of this music, at very least, I want to hook you guys up with a couple things that Andrew has written, and we're going to get to it. You got to hear it because it's like epically happy, but sometimes if you listen to the lyrics, I'm like, holy crap, Hand was like not in a good place or whatever you were writing about. It's like the happy, sad feeling, this epic, you can't decouple it. Now, this is the last thing, y'all. Before we go into Andrew's story, if you're feeling optimistic about the future, and I usually joke about this, I'm going to bust it a little bit today. There is not a lot of folks who are talking about hope and optimism, and oftentimes that is the key to keeping your heart beating. And so if you're feeling hope and optimism, or if you know someone who needs hope and optimism, which many people do, including myself, including Andrew.
Yeah.
Let's do it, Andrew. You've seen the show before. Give us a big old wow face. So I think I just blew my vocal cords out again on you, Hand. Given all of that, there's so many ways to start today, so many ways to talk. And I think this is where we're going to transition, because you do have a message of hope and love to spread. But even before that message, I want to know, what's your story, Andrew?
All right, brother. Well, I'll give you the Cliff Notes version, right? Because I'm 38, and we could have a little book here. But the bottom line is, since a young kid, I just had that sense that I wanted to be a positive force in the world. And I can't explain why. My mother was a minister, and maybe that contributed to that. But, I just felt like I need to do something with my life. And what followed was really just this sense of, like, I think being famous is the way to make a difference in the world, because what you see around you is people that have influence are famous people. That's who I looked up to. And so that quest was like my whole life. I was like, I'll be famous, and then I'll make my difference.
Yeah.
Right? And what that led to was a place where I was in my mid-20s and trying to figure out how to become an actor. That was my path, and really depressed and unhappy in my life, brother. Like really working a job that was the antithesis of anything creative, slinging food at a restaurant, cooking, a line 14 hours a day as a line cook. And I was petrified to step out into the world on my own. I was living in Arizona, and LA seemed so daunting, like a big city. Like, I didn't have family there. I didn't know anyone. And New York seemed like worlds away, and completely scary. But I reached that point, man, where after 7 years of this, I had to break the cycle. I was like, I cannot keep knowing there's more inside of me and living in this small way. And so I made a goal that in 1 year I'd move to New York City. And that's what I did. And so there you go. And that's really when I would say my life started. My life is where I am, who I am now today. It really started out of that deep pain and depression of finally reaching the breaking point of, like, my whole life I felt I was meant for something more, and here for 7 years I'm just stuck. I'm in this pit.
That's so interesting. By the way, Parker, thank you for joining us today.
Hey, Parker.
I wanted to ask you this: when you were boy Andrew, right, and you were looking up to, you were seeing some of the folks either in the media, in other realms that were, ostensibly famous, right? Who were some of these people? Because, I'm like, was it a motivational speaker? You were talking about family that were in the ministry. Right. You were talking about music. Like, who were some of these people that you saw with the message?
Yeah. So, it's interesting because I don't even know that it was the message that struck me. Like, I was around, religion all the time. And I think I really actually, I didn't like religion. For most of my life, I was in this, and I had to, kind of break free of religion and find my own spiritual path back. But at that age, I think it was the movies I watched, man. It's like Arnold Schwarzenegger. It was, who else? Michael J. Fox. It was like movies like Back to the Future. And, just like let's see. I'm trying to think what else I could. My cousin was an actor, so honestly, yeah, that's probably I have this cousin, Chris Rich. He's a successful actor in California and has been on TV shows and stuff. And I just remember how lit up he was. Right, he was like the charismatic guy of the family. And so I think because I had that person in my actual life and I saw these other people in the movies, I was like, well, my family, he's an actor. I want to be one of those other guys. And wait, maybe I could do this,
Yeah. I totally feel you on that. I think there's certain things that I remember growing up with. Number one, like, looking at the media and being like, Arnold, man, you can do whatever it is that you want and say whatever you want. Like, I was actually talking to somebody about Total Recall today. I was like, this person had 3 boobs. Like, you remember that? Like, you have to be in your 30s to remember that
Yeah.
one scene. But also at the same time, I remember saying to myself, like, I've got to get my PhD. I've got to write a book. That's the way that I can get my message out. I don't, I'll figure out my message once I have that power. But until I have that power, until I have that audience, there's nothing that I can possibly say. And so I'm totally relating to what it is that you're saying right now, Andrew. I'm curious to hear the other side of things now. Like, I'm curious to hear if you ever thought to yourself, okay, if I ever get famous, this is the message that I'm going to have. Or were we very much similar? Just
so
watching the media.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing because my message, I think I've always felt since I was a child. And it's really just a sense, I couldn't even articulate it when I was a kid, but I knew that there was a bright light inside of me, and I knew that that light was in other people, and they were hiding from it. They were hiding from it in religion. They were trying to get to it through religion. And they were masked. They were veiled. And that was painful. It's like, come on, can't we just be real? Can't we be truthful? Can't we be open and give each other respect? Like, yeah, I'm 7 years old, but why do you treat me like a little kid? Why don't you treat me for the being that's on the same grounding and footing as you are? And
right on.
When I didn't get that, it was like painful, and it led to like internally questioning, like, why don't people see me? And so I knew that I wanted to be seen, and I wanted other people to see their own greatness in that light, and to break down the walls, break down the barriers, right? And just see humanity, see us for who we are, regardless of sex, regardless of age, regardless of beliefs.
Well, I think one of the things that's super interesting is oftentimes when I don't, for lack of a better term, a child, right? A person cannot articulate yet what it is that they are experiencing. They'll be taking in the world, and they're like, I don't know what it is that I'm taking in. And I know I wouldn't say that our stories are the same, but I do remember a point in which that light that you're talking about, like, I felt it in other people, and I felt the masking that was going on. That's what drove me to do some social justice and identity development work after college. But I actually took it on as thinking that I'm a little bit more sensitive or a little bit more emotional than a lot of people. Would you say that that's something that you felt, or could you like articulate it as a young person?
I think I articulated it through anger.
Right.
Yeah. Because they weren't seeing me. They weren't, and so I was like, well, I'm just gonna show them. I'll just be me, and if they tell me not to do this, I'm gonna do it, because that's what. And so I had a lot of anger issues, and I'll never forget when I was 7 years old. This teacher took me aside and brought my mom in. I think it was actually I had gotten like maybe put in the principal's office or something. And she said, Andrew, you have a great capacity to lead and inspire other people. But no one's ever going to follow you if you don't learn how to lead responsibly. And if you don't, learn how to not be so angry.
Right? How did boy Andrew react to that?
Well, it's kind of, I think part of me heard it and was like part of me heard it and said right away, like, yep, I'm a leader. And I kind of forgot about what she said about, but you're going to have to learn how to lead people. Meaning you're going to have to learn how to really be empathetic. You're going to have to really learn how to listen. You're going to have to learn how to let people be themselves and not try to control them through your vision of who they should be.
And that is such a big thing, is that when we all come in with our personal agendas, oh my God, we can't get anything done, man. So I think that's a huge thing in terms of stepping forward. There's a million ways that we can go, and so you've completely broken the show format like in half, dude. I don't know where we're gonna be going. I think one of the things that I picked up on, though, is this idea of being invisible, right? And so in many ways, like I just read Ralph Ellison's Invisible Man again, right? And one of the first chapters in it is one of the worst things that you can do to another human is make them feel invisible. What is it in other cultures that they do to people when they either act out? Well, they're shunned from the tribe, right? They're pushed out of the group, and so in many ways they're made to be obscure and invisible. And what happens? Well, they act out some more. They try to communicate through anger because they're out of fucks to give at some point, right?
Yeah.
And so it's really unfortunate that that happens with our youth. And this is a great opportunity for us to be able to communicate in different ways as these sensitivities are coming out. So I love that you brought that out. Let's now fast forward. Let's go to line cook Andrew. Let's go to line cook Andrew, who moved to. Where did you move to Arizona from?
So I grew up literally moving like about every 2 years, but I had been in Arizona and then went to Virginia because my mother got a job, ministerial job, and went to high school in Virginia at a boarding school. And when I finished that, it was like, well, I spent the last 5 years in Arizona before I went to high school, and that's where my family's from, so that made the logical place. I didn't get into Cornell. I didn't get into Michigan. Like, I didn't get into any of the schools I wanted to, despite my 4.5 GPA.
Oh, you nerd.
and so I went to Arizona State, like the easiest school on earth to get into.
Oh, right on.
Yeah.
The Devils.
Yeah, Sun Devils, yeah.
So you're going through college, you're working on the line.
Yeah.
And you were talking to me about that light. That light still wasn't coming out, right? At what point were you like, okay, I'm going to New York? And why was it New York? Like, of all places, because you're closer to the West Coast than New York, bro.
It's true, dude. It's true. So, I'd been to New York as a kid. I think it was probably around 8. I had a cousin that lived there, and it was magical. I had a connection when I went to New York right away, and I knew I loved that city. And I didn't ever go back there until about a year before I decided I was going to move to New York. There was an acting conference. I think it was in Texas, Austin or something. I went to this acting conference, and I met a lot of agents, and the ones that I spoke to were really the New York ones. Those were the ones that I was, that were like, hey, you should come here. None of the LA people really said anything to me. Or if they did, I didn't remember it. I remembered the couple from New York that were like, hey, if you come here, let's have a meeting. And I was like, right on. I can have a meeting with like a casting director and an agency. Wow. So I flew out to New York and spent like a week out there and went and had some meetings. And like the minute I landed, dude, it was done. I was like, well, this is where I have to be. And so I sat right there. I was like, all right, 1 year's time, I'm moving here. And I just like, I'll take more shifts on at the restaurant. Like I'll do anything it takes to make, save. I was like, I have to have at least $5,000 saved up. And so I started taking more hours and just was like, whatever. I started walking to work. I sold my vehicle and just did anything I could to cut down expenses and get ready to move.
I think what's awesome about that is this idea of making a declaration, right? And one of the things that I've always loved is I don't know what to call it, Andrew, but like intuition, gut. We've had so many guests that have talked about this, but like once you kind of get clarity on the vision, I know I'm going to New York, right? It's not like I'm going to get famous. Yeah. It's like I'm going to New York, and then you set a time.
And mind you, I wanted to get famous, right? But I knew inside that I had to go there.
Yes, right. And so it's almost like with that big, hairy, audacious goal, right? Because you're famous now. You're on the Golden Mic, baby. It's official. Yeah. It's official. But like with that big, hairy, audacious goal, you also set some clear expectations for the timeline and the place. As Walter is talking about, Walter from Canada, clarity is power. Well said, Walter. Clarity is power. And then it's almost like when you set that, it's almost like setting your GPS, right? Like your GPS sets you to go in any direction. So whatever setback, it's easier to make it's easier to walk to work because you know where you're going to be a year from now. It's easier to make a sacrifice because you know it's not really a sacrifice. It's just a penny in the bank for where it is that you're going to go. So congratulations on that. So we moved to New York. Are we in a band yet?
Dude, now this is the crazy part is what you've seen, the band material, that literally formed in 2015. And so all the way from 2004 to 2015, I was a solo musician who wanted a band desperately, but I was a solo artist.
Right on. Right on. And so what drove you to go into music?
This is kind of crazy. So I was going to be an actor. I'm going to move to New York City, right? And so I'm like, hey, I gotta have gear. If I'm going to be an actor, I've got to have a professional camera and a computer so I can shoot my own videos, make my demo reel. So I buy at that time the most expensive Canon camera, a GL2. It was like one of the top of the line DV camcorders, and I buy a Mac iBook. That was how old this back in 2004. And so I'm starting to make some video content, but I see there's this program called GarageBand, and I'm like, GarageBand, what's this? And I open it up, and literally I'm like, oh, you can make music in this thing. And what had been happening at work, this is something I didn't say, is in this, this depression, right, and this feeling so stuck and trapped, I worked with cool people. And two of the guys there were musicians, and they were always talking about like their gigs and talking about making an album and going on tour. And I was like, geez, man, like I want to be doing something that cool. And so I started to like have this idea like, well, maybe I could be a musician. And so as soon as I bought that computer and opened that program and it already had these thoughts of like, maybe I could be a musician, I was just like, I'm going to become a musician. And so I was like, I'm going to be an actor and I'm going to be a musician.
So what did the process look like now in terms of becoming a singer-songwriter musician?
Yeah.
Because I can tell you, we talked maybe ad nauseum when we were in New York together about sort of our musical interests, how we both are singer-songwriters. Yeah. What does your process look like, or what did it look like?
Well, what it looked like in the beginning is because I had no musical experience, no training whatsoever. I didn't know
Not
what
even
I was
vocal
doing.
Training?
Nothing. And dude, I was terrible. My voice was terrible. So I literally, like took some loops on my computer, found a drum loop that sounded cool, found some guitar riffs, and I was like, I don't know anything about music, but I think I could like sing something over this. And I didn't even have a microphone. I took my camcorder and used its microphone and recorded the vocal to tape. Recorded it to tape, and then bounced it into the session. And so that's what I'd do. I'd come home from work, and I'd make up these little musical pieces, and I'd just let stream of consciousness stuff kind of come out, because I didn't even know how to write a song. I didn't know how you wrote a song. I was like, well, I guess you just kind of say what you're thinking, and maybe I'd had some scraps of paper, and I'd like improv it, and I'd be like, ooh, that's good, and I'd like write it down so I'd remember it for take two.
Right.
But I literally just pieced together little improv lines.
That might be even cooler that you never took a songwriting class before, because you're coming in with like a totally empty mind. Yeah. And so much of what we do in life has to do with like unlearning the structures that we think that we have to abide by, right? Yeah. The beautiful thing about I've been listening to Andrew's former band and current music since we've met in New York. And one of the cool things about it is that it sounds that you're trained in songwriting and that your vocals are trained. You got to listen to this guy's range. So definitely echodriveband.com. You have to check it out. There's some cool stuff going on there. But also at the same time, I love the fact that you're coming in, and a lot of people like will come in and they're like, writing has to do with like point A to point B, right? And in so many ways, if you talk to different songwriters, it's very, very different. Now, if you as you've refined the process, do you come in with the music first, or do you come in with a theme first? Like, I'm going to write a song about the, like how music is awesome, right? I can't stop talking about like The Miracle of Sound, one of the best songs ever, y'all. Or or do you come in with a few catchy lyrics and you're like, this is cool. Like, this has got like an iambic pentameter to it. And like, how do you do it?
So I'll tell you, it really is always different. And the thing that I can tell you, that the tools that I've gotten to is structure is absolutely a bedrock now for me. So before I didn't have structure, right? And I didn't understand it, but I know structure so well now. I mean, I've broken down and taught thousands of songs and learned, how to write a hit song. Like, that was always my goal, right? Is that I wanted songs that were on, not just like that people like, but that were on the radio and that were top 10 hits.
Right
And
on.
I've created a lot, like even Miracle of Sound, like as much as you may like it, like that's not a top 10 hit in my mind, right? And
I love
so,
it though.
thank you, thank you. But there's things in that, like that process, that album cycle. I had to look at it and say, you know what, like it's a neat rock record, right? But is it a top 10 Billboard #1 hit? And I had to be honest with myself and say, you know what, no, it's not. And there's some tools that I need to go get better at if I want to reach that level. And yeah.
So you're striving to not only be the best externally and internally. What are the things that you're learning about creating a top 10 hit?
Here's the thing, right, is
Yeah.
that I used to always go just off inspiration. And then I began inspiration with a little refinement. And what I've gotten, like I used to write and record over 40 songs a year. Like I just would put stuff out. And a friend of mine, that's a very great singer-songwriter, he often would be like, dude, you're so prolific. I wonder what would happen if you wrote less and concentrated more on just polishing those things up. And I was like, no, dude, I've got to be prolific. That's just who I am. And I'll tell you, though, that he was right? Because I was naturally prolific. So what was hard for me? It was hard for me to rein it in and to keep working on stuff, to go back and be like, you know what? This is good, but it's not a Billboard #1 hit yet.
Okay. So were you like listening to like Rick Rubin tracks and like being like, okay, this is, the first, the first part of the song, we double verses, we go into we go and lay the first refrain, we do a shorter verse, then like, were you breaking it down like
Yes,
structurally like that? And
absolutely.
then, okay.
So
Okay.
what I would
So we
do
got it
is,
down to 3.5 minutes.
well, and so the length I found would always just through a solid song structure without lengthy solos. A song, generally a pop song, is always going to be between 2 minutes and 20 seconds and 3 minutes and 30 seconds, unless you unless you have a 32 measure verse. But if you're doing 8 bars and 16 bars, that's just the way the math works out with tempos between, let's say, 60 beats per minute and 180.
Oh, look at him nerding out with me. Now you're
But
going Rick Rubin on me, truly.
and so what I do with songs, right, is I would take them and put headphones on and break down every little thing. Like, all right, we've got a kick drum that starts out the song, and then like the hi-hat comes in for this many bars, and then there's this synth or there's this guitar. So like looking at the production build and then also looking at the lyrical structure and saying like, okay, so how long is this verse? Like, is it 4 bars? Is it 8 bars? Is there a pre-chorus? Is there a chorus? And writing down by hand all the lyrics. Because I could go look them up online, but I wanted to internalize as if I was writing this song. And so when I was done, I'd have a 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper that had the song, it had the key, it had the bullet points on the side, like this is the verse broken down, the verse lyrics, this is the pre-chorus lyrics, this is the chorus with all the chords notated above it, and it had the melody. I often would break down the melody so I'd know just what the intervals were doing in the melody, so I could look at that and say like, what note are they singing against the one chord of a key? When they hit that chord, what note are they singing? And,
oh wow! I mean,
yeah.
This is really polishing it up. This is really, really polishing it up.
I went deep.
Yeah, and I think that's a great freaking thing to do. And I remember the first time when I started breaking out into songwriting. I don't know about you, but like my band and we performed cover songs for about 2 years.
Yeah.
Right. And then as we came together as a band and we just got the basic moves down, right? We got the move set down. We started to say, okay, let's start writing. Start writing for ourselves. And let's start doing some stuff that makes sense for a Filipino lead singer, right? Who's like struggling with his identity on stage and he doesn't see any other Filipinos who are lead singers around here. And people are telling me that I speak so well, right? Like there's all this stuff. And so there's all this material. And in many ways, there was raw emotion coming up for me. Like I was becoming an angry lead singer, right? Like, who are you guys to tell me? And then in many ways, the songwriting aspect of it allowed me to take the anger and turn it into creative energy, right? What about with you? Because I'm trying to find, like, I'm trying to find like his normality when it comes to the pocket about what you write about. And
Mm.
it really does seem like slice of life stuff. And I
Yes.
can't break it down, Andrew. And so talk to us about what it was that drove this. And don't worry, we're not going to talk about music for 45 minutes, y'all. We're gonna talk about even more. But this is the transition piece. Like,
Yeah.
what
This is
is
where
what?
so this is where we get into purpose, right? Because I
Yeah,
was I
yeah,
was an angry songwriter, and I was also just getting out pain. I was stream of conscious letting out my pain through music. And I didn't know why I was doing it. I knew it felt good, and I was like, this song, like, oh, this is awesome. And I felt better after I created it. But after enough of this music and hearing, I used to use a lot of profanity in my music and dropping F-bombs every other word. And I started to say, like, I don't know that I want to feel this angry. Like, I performed that song and I recorded it, but I don't think I actually want to perform this and say this. And
yeah,
so I had this moment where I had to define my life purpose. And I knew that I wanted, again, like back to when I was a kid, I was like, I want to be a positive force for good in this world. And that means that my words need to be positive. They need to be a reflection. Like, even if I talk about pain, I need to do it in a way that isn't me lashing out anger and spewing things that don't have an intention of healing, of feeling better, of feeling more alive, of feeling more open. Because that's where I continued to try and get to with my music, and what I wanted my music to do for other people was to say, yeah, there's pain, there's hurt in life, right? But there is beauty, and there is
mm,
love, and there is joy that's within us, right? It's there. It's
yeah,
there. And music is such a powerful tool to remind ourselves of, like when we listen to songs and we feel, like you said, that crescendo, it's like we can feel ourselves coming alive, right?
yeah,
Even if it's a song about pain, you feel your heart breaking open, and you feel like, I want to, like, yes,
yeah.
I want to rise. Like, I feel this so deeply,
Yeah,
you know?
it's like this. It's right. It's like this crescendo, and you're weeping at the same time. Like, when you feel it, you know it. And so I'm not going to be the one who describes it. Y'all have probably felt it. I love what one of the big things that I have written down, because I will always be a potty mouth, Andrew. But
Dude,
it's definitely.
I swear like a sailor at times. I had to consciously just remove it from my music, you know?
Yeah, and what I absolutely love is in the art of creation, and especially with creation where it comes to dance or music, or writing a book or doing what we're doing right now. This is the art of creation. Something someone told me. Tal Ben Shahar said, "Words create worlds." And
Mm.
so, in many ways, there's a responsibility. Like when we open up um, something with someone else using a song, right? We're opening up a new dimension. We're opening up a new way of thinking. We're also opening up a connection with another person. And if we want to send certain vibrations to another person, and it's an angry, catabolic state,
Yeah.
well, that's a world that we're opening up, and we have to take responsibility for that. That doesn't mean that our music can't be um, musically open-minded,
Yeah.
and it can't help with a therapeutic type of feeling, but also at the same time, um, why should we be always kind of bringing people to an aggro state?
Yeah.
There's a time and place for that. Sometimes you need an extra rep, and there's a song for that, right?
Yeah.
But I don't want to be that guy that gets people into a catabolic state.
Right.
Walter is really vibing with us right now. When we get in a creative state of being, we break the habit of being ourselves. Joe Dispenza, I think Joe Dispenza wrote a book about unconscious writing, which
Mm.
is really interesting because Walt brought that up about 5 minutes ago, and now we're talking about unconscious writing. Success equals learning to clarify and thrive in the process. You're crushing it, Walt. The universe conspires with those that have definite purpose, from The Alchemist. So we've
Oh
got a
yeah.
lot of
Yeah.
good. Yeah, we got a lot of good stuff going on. So now I wanna go and transition over, if your guitar's not working.
Dude, I couldn't get it to work.
Okay, so we'll talk lyrics in a second, but I do want to. I do want to talk about some of the themes that's come up for you as an artist and a speaker. And I think someone who's just been living the dream, right? You've been living the dream as long as you can remember. And you talk often about answering the call of genius. Can you expand a little bit more about answering the call of genius?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So the reason I love like that word genius is always like I don't know, it's always hit me like like I want to be a genius, but I'm no genius, right? And people
Ooh.
like man, he's a genius. And if you look at the definition of genius, what it means is to have a natural talent or ability, right? And that's like what we operate under. Like, so, oh, this person is that's just how they were. Like Einstein, my gosh, he's just a mental genius. I could never be like him. And really, what genius means, if you go back to the Latin root of it, it means the attendant spirit present from one's birth.
Mm.
And I wrote a book several years ago, and I used that as I was talking about the creative process, and that like we are geniuses. Every single one of us, we have our spirit, and we were born into this world. And our genius is not in comparing ourselves to other people. Like this person has this particular ability that's their genius, but we want to like compartmentalize it and be like, well, a genius means an IQ threshold. No, no, no. A
Yeah.
genius means the kind of person that has a genius of opening their heart so much that every single person that's in their company feels like they are deeply loved and they feel seen by this person. That is that person's genius. And maybe their
Mm.
vehicle of genius is that they do that through wonderful food that they make for people. I mean, it's
Yeah.
like the vehicle could be anything.
So I love this idea that we are born with the genius inside,
Yeah.
versus that a lot of the externalities of life and the journey has to do with acquisition of genius, right? The development of your genius, versus having it. Now, if we're born with genius,
Yeah.
how is it that we know that we're living the genius? Because we can be pulled in so many different directions.
Yeah. I think that I look at it as two things. The childlike state, right? Kids don't really have to plan or think about things. They don't have to set up structures, right? They're in the moment. And in the moment, they get ideas to do things, right? It's like, I'm going to do this with my Legos, and we're telling this story because it seems fun, it seems curious. They just do it. They don't have to think about it, right?
Mm.
And that feeling guides them.
Mm.
And, for me, I think that the voice, that still small voice, that playful, that the thing that encourages you to step outside of what feels fearful, what feels scary, that voice is part of genius.
Mm. Mm.
Because when you open and expand, right, when you listen to that voice, and it can be small things, man. Like one of my favorite things I talk about is like you can be in a checkout line and you want to say something to the cashier, like you want to connect, you want to be like, hey, like how's your day going? How are you feeling today? You want to have a real connection, but the next voice that comes in is like, oh, don't talk to this person. They're like, and their cashier thing. I'm like in my day. I don't really want to like stop. I'm busy. I got all this stuff to do. But you wanted to, and you would have felt if you did it. If you answered that call, you would have felt like, wow, that was neat. I feel better because I just did that.
That's pretty freaking rad. It makes me feel better about meeting you randomly, or not randomly, but pretty intentionally in New York, and saying you gotta get on my show, right? But also at the same time, if genius is really something that we feel inside,
Yeah.
what is that voice? Like, what is the voice that's telling us not to listen to that genius? Like, I'm
Yeah.
almost listening, like I'm not listening. I'm envisioning like the angel that pops up on the shoulder,
Yeah.
and then there's that
And
little like
yeah.
the pitchfork, right?
Yeah.
What is the other voice, and why would it be telling us not to listen to what it is that we inherently know?
Yeah. Well, and I don't know for you or for everyone that's watching, but like I know for me, I had a lot of voices in my head, right?
Mm-hmm.
And some of them would be loving and like be pushing for my expansion or like, you can do this, you should do this, you got this. And the other voices would be like, man, don't even try this. You're going to fail. You'll look like an idiot.
Mm.
This
Mm-hmm.
is, there's no way you're going to go out there and it just won't work. You're going to be alone. You have, like, so fear and contradiction, doubt, worry, the part of the mind that you get inspiration, and suddenly you want to like be like, okay, how am I going to make that work? Well, I've got to do this, 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 and this, and then you're hit with overwhelm. It's like this big ball of overwhelm tackles you because you were trying to figure out just how to structure and order the impulse, the single impulse, and you were trying to put a whole plan together instead of saying, you know what, the impulse just says walk out the door, turn left, and see what happens.
Kind of like going to New York.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So I think you're talking about something that's really, really important, and I want to stop and kind of bring us to that idea, sort of the idea of impulse and this singular moment. And it doesn't matter whether we have 10 people watching or it doesn't matter how many people are watching on the replay. You and I, Andrew, are having a very singular moment right now. And I feel like it's very real. And why is it that this is the only thing that matters for us right now? Because I know that you bring that up in your music and your speeches as well.
Yeah, I think why the present moment is all that matters is because it is the moment that holds peace, that holds clarity, right? Clarity isn't gained through stepping into the future. I think you can gain clarity through looking into the past, but I think that it's only by being in the present moment, right? You couldn't just live in the past and have clarity. You have to be in the present moment looking backwards, right?
Mm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so, this moment is where we're always creating, right? We say yes. We say yes to, in New York, I meet Mark. I say yes to, I'd want to be on his show. And I have a lot of yeses that I keep saying, right? And now we're in this moment. And we've continued to say yes. Yes to questions that you ask me, and I answer them, right? And
Yeah.
that is the creation and unfolding, I think, at its purest. Because in this conversation, I'd have to literally stop our conversation to let my mind get back in the flow and start thinking. Because I've just been listening and talking, right, as you ask me things. And
Yeah.
to me, it's felt like a state of genius. It's felt like a state of flow. It's felt on purpose. And it's felt, yeah.
Yeah, I'm feeling it too right now, man. We're 43 minutes in, by the way. So
Wow.
that's what I'm talking about with flow. I have no idea how long we talked for in New York, but like, I had a feeling that we would get into the state of flow. And also at the same time, what's interesting is Walt has been talking about the state of flow, the ability to access talent, to skills and talent, access skill and talent, but also connecting with intuition and creativity.
Mm.
And that's actually what I'm hearing you talk about is when you're like you've got that inner genius that you're talking about, Andrew, but that's not going to be able to do jack squat unless you're living in the present moment.
That's
If you're
right.
thinking about the past or you're thinking about the future, and I think Walt, I've heard you use this horizontal thinking. We're taking energy away from the present, and to be stuck in the past or to be looking at the future, we're completely missing an opportunity to totally play jazz together, Andrew.
Dude,
Right?
and it's one of the biggest, like why do I, well, they say what we talk about is often our biggest challenge, right? And it's one of my biggest challenges, man, is like to really step into the unknown, to step into uncertainty because that voice has told me to. And when my nervous system and my head can be freaking out, like they can just like, it's like, oh my gosh, like, but how's this going to work? And it's like a continual, like, all right, dude, breathe,
Yeah.
surrender, try and pull outside of where you're at in this present moment of where fear might want to come in, and like look at what does your heart say, right? Because the head can say a lot of stuff. And
Yeah.
I'll ask myself, I'll be like, all right, all these thoughts are kind of coming in as I'm trying to honor this call, right?
Yeah.
I'm answering this call, and then a lot of thoughts are swirling in, and it's freaking me out. Like I'm wanting to not answer this call. I'm wanting to stop.
Yeah.
But if I can say, what does my heart say? What does my head say? And I'll be like, my head's saying like, dude, you need to like get out of here. You need to hop on a plane. You need to go to this place. You need to forget everything you've been trying to do. You need to go like start playing some cover gigs again. You need to do X, Y, and Z. And I'll say, what does my heart say? My heart's like, you need to like buy a ticket and go to New York and like go to this event. And then I meet you. I meet Jen. Just all kinds of people and things that have continued to unfold because like I step into this scary space. I'm like, I have no clue like why I'm doing this. It doesn't seem
Yeah.
rational.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that's awesome in terms of when you're talking about embracing the unknown, um, and the call of genius, there is a certain knownness to the genius that you're talking
Yeah,
about, because we're
yeah,
born inherently with something that's known.
yeah,
Now the things that are unknown that I'm hearing you say is, well, the rational prefrontal cortex is kicking in and saying,
yeah,
well, you can't do that shit, man, or like, you can't talk to this Asian with no voice. Like, what is it? What is, like, you can't do that, And but the thing is that there's a certain head, heart, and gut when they're in total alignment,
mm,
that the unknown becomes known. And even though you can't rationally say this is what tomorrow exactly is going to look like, you can say with confidence that I'm optimistic about it,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
So I do want to talk about a couple more things here. Um, I think that you're a person that shows that when you focus on something, you can develop a competence for something very quickly, right? So, for example, GarageBand, right? I'll never figure out GarageBand, and I had the whole setup, right? I had the whole like mixing board and the buttons and all that good stuff, right? But yeah, at the end of the day, I just have my Zoom recorder, like that's what I use nowadays, right? But like, you can build your confidence very quickly if you want to devote uh, your uh, your focus to that. But then
yeah.
there's also a competence,
Yes.
or competence and confidence. What is the paradox that exists between confidence and competence?
Yeah. So I mean, I honestly think that. Well, I guess I don't want to make an ultimatum statement, but so confidence is, for me, it was a prerequisite to gaining competence. Because if I did not feel that I could open this program and overcome, like, my mind's like, how do you do this? How do you do that? And if I was like, oh, it's too overwhelming, I just can't. If I didn't feel confident that I could figure it out, I never would have gotten started and I never would have pushed through.
Yeah,
Right? And I wasn't
yeah,
competent at the beginning. Like, it took me hours to try and figure out how to put a little automation fade on something, you know? But I felt confident and I was creating. So I was like, all right, like, I like this thing I created. I've got to figure this out because, like, I believe this song is good. So I'm the only one here to mix it. So I've got to figure out how to work these tools, and it makes my brain hurt, but I'm going to figure it
yeah.
out.
And that makes a lot of sense. I think about folks that I coach, and it's all along the board. They're starting a podcast, they're starting this, they're starting that. And in many ways, they're learning the ropes when it comes to, like, do I use Stitcher? Do I use this? Do I do that? But inside, they're very clear on where it is that they want to go. And they know that they're going to learn the buttons, they're going to learn this, they're going to learn that. They're going to be able to speed up the process. And I think that there's one thing that I would love to add to the confidence competence paradox that might link the two. And that's the feeling that you deserve to be here. Because in many ways, I see a lot of people, including myself, stepping up and saying, like when we met in New York, there will be a little inner gremlin saying, look at these musicians. Look at these people on Entrepreneur Magazine. Look at these people making like trillions of dollars. Like, literally, there's a guy named the $1 Trillion Man or something like that there, right? Um, and here's me who can't get his voice going. Do I deserve to be here? Right?
Mm.
And I'm like, man, I think that I have the confidence, right? And I think that I have the competence to speak, but also, do I deserve to be here? And that's something that, to me, people will always need to be working on, that you damn sure deserve to be somewhere. Now, the thing is you're going to have some growing pains, right? I don't know what your first live shows look like, but like,
Painful.
I was trying to mimic like Weezer and Anthony Kiedis, and like, there was no originality in what it was that I was doing. I was mimicking their movements, right? Right? Like, but then you start finding your voice, and the whole time I knew, and my bandmates knew, we deserve to be here. Now, in deserving to be there, sometimes people can feel like they're selfish and they're knocking somebody off. I know that you also talk about this, the art of being selfish. That is like, I
Yeah,
could see
dude.
that being something of a perturbance for people. Like, how do you view that?
Yeah. So I guess, again, we talk about those things that we deal with, right? And I've always dealt with like being a selfish person, and that I knew my worth like to a super degree. Like I'm like the most important thing in the world. Like not from a like you don't matter perspective, but like I matter like so much.
Yep.
Like as much as you matter. You matter so much as I matter, but I can't be you. So I can't give you all that I need to give to me because how much I matter. Like I can give you some of my mattering, right? But I can't if I devote my focus to you, I won't be giving me what I need.
I absolutely feel you on that. I've heard a lot of people, and it didn't ring true to me probably until I stepped into the coaching stuff, but not giving power away. And I'm
Yeah.
like, why? Because I was born with a lot of privilege, man. But like, there's certain things where in answering your call to genius, like sometimes giving that power away lowers your ability to fully serve the greater good where you want to. And so like when you're talking about the art of being selfish, there's a certain ownership and reclamation that I'm hearing, right? Where we're not giving everything away. I've also heard this. You come from a sort of a minister background, so I don't know if you shut the door on this Bible verse, but it's probably one of the greatest things I ever heard. Jesus was a punk rocker, dude. I think he went and said something along the lines of "Don't share your pearls with the swine."
Wow.
I know, right? It's like
That's good.
right.
Jesus was a wise cat. Like I got a lot of respect for Jesus.
Oh man, he's flipping over tables and stuff. Like the dude was a punk rocker, but like straight up, you don't have to be like full on Christian to pick up what was being thrown down. But in many ways, there's a certain self protectionism that's going on.
Yeah.
If you open up your heart and you just keep it open, people will reach in, take whatever they want, and stomp on it. And
That's
what
right.
good does that do you when you are trying to serve more than one person, more than yourself? So in many ways, it is self-defeating sometimes, right?
Yeah.
So I want to go back to music. We talk about the answering the call of genius, y'all. The art of being selfish. We talk about the confidence competence paradox, embracing the unknown and being here in the moment. Of all the lyrics you've ever written, what would you say is your favorite lyric of all time that even comes close to either summing that up or
Yeah.
whatever?
Gosh, dude. I mean, you know, it always used to be that my latest song was my favorite one.
Yeah.
And I think now because I've taken this like refining process, I realize that I'm saying the same thing in a lot of my songs, right? I'm saying the core message, like the context on top is different, but it's the same message. And so, yeah, dude, I think it's honestly like the songs like Gold and like Dreamer, the ones on this upcoming album where, you know, it's like, yeah, is it a masterpiece? Is it the soul I seek? Is it the blood I bleed? Is it the cold release? Is it the war I fight? Is it the heart inside? Is it the tears I've cried? You know, and like,
What is
yeah,
it?
yeah, yeah. And then the song goes on, right?
Yeah.
The song goes on, right? And it says, now I know that I might not make it out for a minute, but I know it's the only life that I've been given. So this is the masterpiece. This is the soul I seek. This is the blood I bleed. This is the cold release. This is the war I fight. This is the heart inside. These are the tears I've cried.
You got to save it for the golden mic, son. I need to throw this out. For all of you who are watching live or the replay, yeah, getting some comments here. You can get the song Gold.
That one right there.
Yep, you can get this very song if you text Echo to 38470. That's Echo 38470. You gotta hear it. I also know that you can pick up my favorite song of all time, The Miracle of Sound. You're not going to hear it on the top 10, but it's badass. We're going to listen to Gold again, and you got to play it acoustic for us one day, man.
I will.
We're going to get it to work. Andrew, what else do we got going on? I didn't mean to single you down to a singer-songwriter. You're giving speeches. I know you're traveling. Like, how else can we keep up with you?
Yeah, so I mean, people can find me on, you said echodriveband.com is where they
Mm-hmm.
can get my music, but there's echodrivemusic.com, and then
Mm-hmm.
there's also andrewhand.com, which is around my speaking work. And yeah, I score commercials, I write songs for people and organizations, I speak. I'm just out there trying to share this message of hope, love, and self-acceptance.
Message of hope, love, and self-acceptance. I would love to possibly have that as a, a song
Mm.
to kick off my show one day.
Nice.
A boy can hope and a boy can pray. Andrew Hand, on behalf of everyone that's watching, dude, we went into full flow, man.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah,
know
yeah.
about you, but like,
Wow, 10:56. I can't believe it.
yeah, straight up hour, man, straight hour. And I just want to thank you. Anytime you want to come back, we'll have you back. We're gonna have you performing. Um, and I think this is the part. This is why the show is called the Golden Mic. So Andrew Hand, I want you to imagine, if you will, that a golden mic is descending from the ceiling, and this golden mic translates into every language all across the world for 2 minutes.
Wow.
You can talk anything you want into the golden mic. It's all yours.
All right. Well, I think it's only fitting that we have a golden mic here. Pop down. It's only for you, Mark
You
Cordone.
can manifest like a mofo, dude. Love it.
Oh. All
So
right.
you hit the switch over there. You're live across the world, son.
Here we go. So, what I want you to know, right, is that despite the struggle, the pain, the hurts of life, the defeats, and all the things that make you feel less than, make you question your purpose, wonder how you're going to move forward, that it is the freedom, the joy, and the love of your inner light and spark that you've had since childhood. That place, that brilliance, that is what will call you to go to funny places, do funny things, say funny things. And I promise you that if you listen to that voice, even when you're in the midst of chaos, darkness, spinning, not knowing where to go or what to do, if you have an open heart, that voice is going to take you to magical places, and it's going to open doors for you. So I would just say, continue to realize your worthiness. If you don't believe it, start faking it. Start looking within and saying, what part of me is worthy, right? What part of me is worthy? Is my 7-year-old self, was that person worthy? Because if you can feel worthiness from any version of you in your entire life, if you could think back to being in the womb of your mother before anything happened, in that womb, was I worthy? Was I pure love? Was I essence? Before anything had imprinted on me, any pain had imprinted on me, wasn't I just a beautiful, radiant soul longing to come into this world and be free and be excited and be joyous? And maybe you came out and all you knew was pain from the second you popped out. And that's unfortunate because that's what the world did, right? But you have a choice to tap back in to that light, that spark, that essence. And I promise you that if you focus on it and you listen to it, it's going to bring you back home. It's going to bring you back home to you. Because that spark in you, it wants you to be the most playful, free, tapped in, tuned in version of you. It wants your highest expansion, right? It doesn't want you to be limited. It doesn't want you to be fearful. And that doesn't mean, man, we are, right? We get limited. We get fearful. The mind comes in. You're not going to stop it, right? But if you can go back to those places, that spark, and the more you cultivate it, the more you recognize it, the more you become aware of it. Like, yeah, there it is. That's right. That's where I found it. I remember, right? And tapping back in. Like, I have to tap in all the time, man. I'm getting ready to drive to Montana, and the last few days, my nervous system's been freaking out in all kinds of ways about planning and where I'm going and all this. I'm like, I don't know, 16 hours from now, I'll be in Montana, you know? And, yeah, so I think that's what I got to say, man. You are a brilliant, amazing, beautiful being, and I know it doesn't always feel that way, but if you can find that part of you that did know that, right? Just focus on that. Focus on that more. Live into that more. Let love open your heart.
Andrew Hand. Take that golden mic. Take that golden mic. Now slam the golden mic! Smash it! Smash the golden mic! Since it's a fake golden... No, do not. Do not. Yo, that is an expensive mic he is holding up. Andrew Hand, Echo Drive, andrewhand.com. Text ECHO, ECHO, at 38470 for the song Gold. Also, I'm not letting you go. You were supposed to sing on this show. We're going on Twitter Live. So go to markcordone.com and you are going to sing a cappella right now when we get off the show. You're going to sing the song, or at least part of the song.
I'll do it.
Log in. We're going to give it a shot. markcordone.com or mark.cordone. We're going to try it on Twitter. But here's the thing, y'all. Andrew, thank you so much for coming on the show. Safe travels. Eat a sandwich, for God's sake, on the way up there. You're wheedling away, brother. You said it all. I can't wait to have you back. And this is the last thing I have to say to y'all. If you're feeling good and you're living in your full purpose, what is your responsibility to the greater good? I'm your boy, Mark Cordone. It's your boy, Andrew Hand. 1 hour of flow. We're going to sing some songs on mark.cordone at Twitter Live. Thank you, Andrew, for being on.
Thank you.
Thanks, brother.